Good morning. This is Ron. It is Wednesday, May the 23rd. Welcome to Story Time. Okay, thank you. And so this morning I'm sitting in Starbucks. Just about every day I go into Starbucks and get on my computer and whatnot. And there was three homeless people that were surrounding me, and one of them had taken one of my favorite tables that I wanted to use. So I was a little bit frustrated with that and put off by the whole thing of having all these homeless folks in this many in the store. Usually they'll come in, they'll get something, maybe use the bathroom or whatever, and then they leave and they go out or they hang out outside. And today they're hanging out inside the store. And what it reminded me of was the incident that happened the other day with two black gentlemen that were in Starbucks and ended up getting arrested and because the manager had called the police on them, and the ensuing news media controversy over that whole act. And even more importantly, how Starbucks responded to it. And I think Starbucks responded to it in the way it did, which is, by the way, they just came out and announced that basically they're throwing the doors wide open. Anybody who wants to come in and use the store for whatever purpose they want to, knock yourself out. You want to come in just to use the bathroom, use the bathroom. If you just want to come in and hang out and sit around and shoot the poo with your friends and you don't want to bother to buy something, we don't care. Welcome. Everybody's welcome. And part of it just occurred to me, the reason that they're doing this is because they're left. I think you don't get any farther left as a corporation than Starbucks. And I think that this situation where two black guys were arrested really sticks in their craw because, again, they see themselves as caring people, compassionate people, that they see themselves as racist, but they're getting over it. Because for the left, there are two kinds of white people. You've got unrepentant racists and repentant racists. And the Starbucks are the repentant racists. So they're okay. And so it sticks in their craw. They're busting their butts to try to improve, not just go out and make money for the corporation and for their shareholders, but they're trying to change the world. And so when they see something like this happen, I'm sure it really stuck in their craw. The first thing that had occurred to me, but anyways, the response is, let's throw open the doors. An overreaction, a clear overreaction. You can throw up the doors all you want. The store is your property and your responsibility. And I'm talking to Starbucks and Starbucks CEO and the officers of the company and the board of directors. So if I bring it to your attention that you have slipping and tripping hazards in your store and you don't take care of it, and I slip and trip and injure myself, you may very well have a liability vis-a-vis my injuries, okay, because it's your property and your responsibility. Okay, throwing open the doors isn't going to absolve you of any responsibilities. It may end up complicating things and make things worse, not only for your customers, but for the corporation in the long run. So if you got homeless people now that are going to want to hang out in there, first of all, it's going to have a tendency to drive off your real paying customers. The people that are coming in there, they want coffee or whatever, they're going to go somewhere else. And if push comes to shove and all restaurants want to do this, then ultimately I stay home and make my own coffee. I can always go to the grocery store and buy Starbucks coffee, whole bean or already ground, and make my own. If I'm so, fascinated with Starbucks coffee, but more than likely I just go get some Folgers or something like that, make my own coffee and skip the homeless gathering that's going on in there. Also, what it does is it creates a potential safety problem in that you have homeless people, and one of the homeless people I encountered this morning was talking to herself and just going on and chuckling and laughing, and she was in a good mood. That's great. But What happens when she's not in a good mood? What happens when she's angry, irritated, annoyed? What's going to come out of her mouth then? And when she's in the restaurant, and is she going to go off on the wrong person? Is there going to end up being a fight, a brawl, a melee of some sort? Are people going to be injured? In other words, is Starbucks a safe place to do business now? And I think it's less safe than it used to be. There's also the aspect, of course, of then criminal activity, and up to and including terrorism that you have to be concerned with. So again, I think it's a less safe place to visit, and I'm going to see about finding other places to go, and maybe we'll just go ahead and skip the whole Starbucks experience. Plus, I'm not a lefty anyways, and it's a left-wing organization. I should be going somewhere else, I suppose, but I don't know which coffee shops are more conservative, but I'll have to find that out. Anyhow, so yes, they overreacted, and it brings me back to the situation itself, which I think was interesting. That again, the news people see the opportunity or the potential for revolutionary friction, social friction that might touch off some revolutionary fervor, and because they don't tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They are constantly trying to slant stories in such a way as to create social friction. And in this case is no different. There's a lot of things they left out of the story. There's a lot of questions. For instance, you have these two guys that apparently were hanging out in the Starbucks for hours. Now, allegedly, after they got arrested, they said, "Oh, but we were waiting for our friend." You're spending hours in Starbucks waiting for your friend? That doesn't make any sense. I have in the real world, I don't do that. I don't spend hours. I pick up the phone, I call my friend, "Hey, where are you?" And then I put a deadline on. "Hey, if you're not here in 15 minutes, I'm gone." I'm not going to spend my whole day hanging out in a coffee shop waiting for somebody. Okay, so that's I don't know. That just doesn't ring true. The other part of it that's interesting is that the whole emphasis was on the manager by the news people. Well, the manager did this, the manager called the police, but remember what happened when she called the police. When she called the police arrived and arrested these two individuals, arrested them. Now, uh, think of I've had experience with police in a similar situation. I was in a Winchell's Donuts place, and one of the employees didn't want me in there, called the police, and the police showed up, right? But I didn't get arrested. You know why? Because the police gave me an option. Police officer said, "Look, you can leave, or I will arrest you for trespassing." And I know with absolute certainty that that's exactly what happened with the two individuals in Starbucks. I know for sure the police gave them that option. "Hey, look, you guys can leave, or we can arrest you for trespassing." And so apparently they were defiant, and they were promptly arrested. Which also makes me wonder then, why would you be defiant? Why, when you're starting adding it up, they're spending hours in this store supposedly waiting for a friend. The police show up, and instead of just going ahead and saying, "Well, you know what, adios, I'll do my business somewhere else, I'll file a complaint, I'll hire a lawyer and sue you, whatever," they choose to get arrested. Could this be a stunt? Could this be a politically motivated, that this was rehearsed and was deliberately done so as to create social friction? That some Black Lives Matter or some other group may have actually put these two gentlemen up to it, so to speak. Don't know. But again, there's more questions than there are answers in the story, and I know that it just kind of smells to high heaven. But in any case, Starbucks overreacted, clearly. What they should have done was analyze the situation, look at their policies, and look at whether or not did the manager overreact, and if maybe that's the deal that you can, then would come back and say our managers will get remedial training and will be instructed on how to respond more appropriately in the future, rather than saying, "Gee, we're going to throw the doors wide open and let anybody in there." Because in the long run, I think that's counterproductive for Starbucks. I think that that's just going to end up to a loss of business, and what they end up where they're going to have to change their policy back to something more reasonable. So when I come back, I'm going to be reading from the Rush Limbaugh interview in Playboy magazine. Thank you. And I'm back, and I'm reading from the Playboy interview of Rush Limbaugh in, the Playboy interview, and I don't know, it was 1993, I believe, when he was interviewed here. And one of the things with Rush Limbaugh when I'm reading this interview is again that he's kind of obtuse in a lot of ways. The left is pulling, represented by the individual that's actually conducting the interview, is hoodwinking him in a lot of ways that he doesn't even realize, he doesn't even see or notice, which is a bit of a shame, especially for somebody like him that brags as much as he does. Here, Playboy. Perhaps the most significant aspect of your conservative strategy has been your attempt to recapture the language. But where a responsible conservative might take issue with, say, feminists, you call them feminazis. Limbaugh. No, I don't. No, 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 no. I've been misstated, misrepresented, misreported on this. A feminazi is not a feminist. A feminazi is two things: a woman to whom the most important thing in life is seeing to it that every abortion possible happens. I've found more than 20 of those, but they exist. I've not found more than 20 of those, but they exist. And they do this to advance their political agenda and hate for men. And then there's another kind of feminazi who demands from you total compliance with the feminist agenda, or you're the enemy. But a woman who wants equal pay for equal work, who wants independence, who wants to enjoy life, that's not a feminazi. And so what he's implying there is that the person that wants to enjoy life is a feminist, is a true feminist. And so he's making a false um, definition here. The truth about feminism is feminism, just like, well, we'll just stick with feminism, is that it came out of what is called post Marxism. Once upon a time, there was a guy named Karl Marx, and he decided that he had a theory that was called dialectical materialism. It was based on Hegel's dialectical historicism. But the idea with Karl Marx was that life is going in a certain direction. He had a narrative that basically said, once upon a time, everybody was happy and living on Earth and having a great time, and then all of a sudden the evil capitalists show up and screw everything up for everybody. They pollute the Earth. They treat everybody like crap. They enslave black people, blah, blah, blah. But then the heroic socialists come on the scene. They educate people, and at a certain point, the inevitable worldwide revolution ensues. Socialist paradise is then restored, and everybody lives happily ever after. Okay, so everybody on the left is digging this. This basically is he's talking about the workers. That is the proletariat, the workers that are going to throw off the yokes of their capitalist masters. They're going to be the ones leading the revolution. They're going to be the prime movers. Well, somewhere in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, a lot of people on the left started having doubts because they said, well, wait a minute, how come we haven't had a revolution yet? There's all kinds of things going on that should be that are the Vietnam War, and you had an arms race, a nuclear arms race. There's all kinds of good reasons to have a revolution as far as they were concerned, but it's not happening. Nobody is getting ready to. There's no more revolutionary potential to the world in 1960 than there was when Karl Marx first created his theory. So they came up with something, a couple of things. First of all, critical theory, the idea that you can criticize Marxism and still be a Marxist, and post Marxism. And post Marxism said that it is not the workers that necessarily will be, although they could be, but not necessarily will lead the revolution, the impending and inevitable worldwide revolution. That it could be any oppressed class. So that's when they started dividing people into race. We have radical blacks. Then you had the gender situation, and that's where feminists came in. Betty Friedan wrote her book, The Feminist or Feminine Mystique, etc. But it was the whole idea of any class or group of people that can create social friction, have the potential to set off the worldwide socialist revolution and usher in socialist paradise. Lately, the group it divides now down into religion. The left has a rather love-hate relationship or an ambivalent relationship with Islam and Islamic terrorists because the left sees the Islamic terrorists as fellow travelers. They're very excited about and see a tremendous amount of revolutionary potential in radical Islam because basically the radical Islamicists or Muslims want the same things that the socialist left wants: a worldwide revolution ushering in, but not socialist paradise, but Islamic paradise, the 12th Caliphate or whatever it's called. So it would be by Muslims, for Muslims kind of a situation. The left likes the revolutionary potential. They don't like the religious aspects of it. Okay, because again, the left is fundamentally atheist. Okay, they don't believe in God or Allah or anybody. So, but the left likes the idea of the Islamic terrorists starting a revolution because the left in this country believes that once the revolution gets started, that they can steer it in its logical, secular, socialist direction and provide the logical socialist conclusion to it. So that's where feminism comes in. Feminism isn't about how you describe a woman. It isn't about somebody that wants equal pay. All of that is just another equal. The whole equal pay thing is just another way of agitating. That's their motto on the left: agitate, agitate, agitate. They can't stand the idea of things being calm. Okay, look at what it used to be in the 60s that the agitation around blacks was about equal rights and everybody being treated equally and everybody being and it was about also is getting people to live together instead of having white people live on one side of town, blacks live on another side of town. We want that integration was the watchword. Why? Not, it wasn't because that anybody on the left gave a rat's ass about an integrated American society. I don't give a damn about that. It was because they were sure that all white people are basically redneck racists, and that if you come back and say, "Hey, we're going to take your white children and we're going to bus them to a black school," that's it. That all the white rednecks in this country would be burning down this country so fast it would make your head spin. And then once that gets started, again, the left feels they could step in and steer things to a logical left-wing socialist conclusion. So, um, yeah, that's the deal as far as the racist part of that is concerned. Where, oh yeah, so it's basically the idea is agitation. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And the same thing goes with women and so-called women's issues: abortion, equal pay, et cetera, et cetera. The left doesn't give a rat's ass whether or not women get equal pay. What they care about is they're getting women to agitate for change, because that's where you're going to create social friction and you're going to create the potential, theoretically, for revolution. The other thing I was getting to with the racist situation was it used to be the watchword was integration. Now All of a sudden, over the past few years, because things had calmed down around integration, there was a lot of gnashing of teeth, and people were angry and irritated, and it didn't quite get to a revolution point. But there was riots in many cities and whatnot. But it did, work as a sort of an agitation or a catalyst for change. Then things started to settle down. So the left says, well, what do we do now? Because now over the years, people started becoming more integrated, and the whole society began changing and evolving and becoming um, less racist. So now, as it settles down, then it's losing its revolutionary potential. There's no agitation going on. So they got to stir the pot again. So now we go the opposite direction. The people on the left are saying, oh, we need to have separation, that blacks need to be separate from whites. We need to have campus programs strictly for black people. Need to have college campus curriculum strictly for black people. We need to have black television shows, television networks, and we need to have everything again go back to being separate. Why? I mean, if you're looking at this from a logical standpoint, if you're looking at this from the standpoint of trying to create the best society that we can and trying to correct the mistakes that we've made in the past, this doesn't make any sense. Because again, years ago, the watchword was integration. The more integrated we could get, the better. But now, all of a sudden, it's disintegration and separation. Why would you do that? Well, the left and what they're looking for. Ultimately, they want revolution in paradise. Then it starts to make sense. And so again, and the same thing with the feminists. It was, today it could be about equal pay, and then tomorrow they're going to complain because they have equal pay. Why isn't it? Why don't we have unequal pay between men and women? Whatever it takes to agitate, to irritate, to annoy, and to try to get people to rise up against the capitalist masters and usher in socialist paradise. And in Rush Limbaugh, unfortunately, Mr. So-called conservative, and again, that's why I always say I'm the only true conservative in the United States of America. And I shouldn't say true conservative. I'm the only conservative, period. Because I'm a conservative because I say I am, because I know I am. And Rush Limbaugh is a conservative because the left says he is. He just accepts it. They hung the conservative, albatross, as it were, around his neck, and he just leaves it there. And that's the way it is for all the other conservatives in this country. They're not conservative because they say so. They're conservative because the Democrats say so. Because the Democrats have created the playing field. They have decided that everything should be decided on the issues. They decided what the issues are, and they've decided in advance who stands on which side of those issues. So then to know whether or not this person is conservative, you just ask him, well, where do you stand on abortion? Where do you stand on the environment? Where do you stand on Middle East peace? And then by the answers to those questions, oh, well, you're therefore a liberal, actually a socialist, or you're a conservative, rather than the true meaning of the word conservative or socialist is the fundamental meaning is, or definition, is where one stands on change. If you make the presumption for the status quo, you're conservative. That's me. And if you make the presumption for change, you're not conservative. Even if you're socialist or socialistic, libertarians do not make the presumption for the status quo. They make the presumption for change. Objectivists make the presumption for change. There's a lot of conservatives, particularly religious conservatives, that make the presumption for change. They get up every day looking to do away with Roe v. Wade. They look to change our educational system in certain fundamental ways. They're as much conservatives, particularly religious conservatives, about creating a movement as are the left. Both the left and everyone else, the libertarians, the objectivists, and the conservatives all agree that this country sucks. I don't think you realize that, but that's true. They really believe, they all really believe. I'm the only one that doesn't. I'm the only one that says, you know what? This country's pretty damn good the way it is. Okay? It is all the other so called faux conservatives that agree with the left fundamentally that this country sucks and that it needs to change. Where they disagree with the left is where it should change, how it should change, what it should look like after it's changed. So, anyways, like I said, hopefully, I was going to say hopefully Rush Limbaugh will learn something and change his mind, but it seems to me the only thing that he reads are the news clips that his staff puts in front of him every day and Sports Illustrated. So I think it's highly unlikely that he's ever going to pick up any books on philosophy and read and really get educated about about what life is really all about. So. But anyways, when we come back, finishing up with the New York City cab driver's joke book. Okay, and thank you. And I'm back. And we're reading from the a joke or two from the New York City cab driver's joke book. Wow, here's a good one. Why did the Polish grandmother have her tubes tied? She didn't want any more grandchildren. Two men are business partners in the same office in New York, and they have a beautiful secretary. She's gorgeous, she's young, and both men are attracted to her. It turns out that they both start fooling around with her, and she gets pregnant. They don't know what to do, don't know who the father is, and they're in a real quandary. So they decide to chip in and send her off to Florida to have the baby. In her 8th month, they send her away, but then they don't hear from her for quite a while, and they begin to worry. One of the men decides to go down to Florida and check on her. His first night there, he calls his partner in New York. Well, how is she? Asks the man in New York. She's fine, she's okay, the man in Florida says. But I have some good news and some bad news. Well, says the partner, what's the good news? The good news is that she's fine, she's healthy, and she had twins. Well, what's the bad news? Asks the man in New York. The other man replies, mine died. Did you hear about the Jewish kid who asked his father for $50? His father said, $40? What do you need $30 for? A man and a woman got in my cab one night. I had to look twice at the guy to make sure it wasn't Woody Allen. It wasn't, but he looked just like him. I told him that last joke. When we arrived at the destination, I turned off the meter and said, okay, that'll be $3.40. The guy said, $2.40? That's a lot. $1.40 is an awful lot for cab fare. I like that one. Anyways, it brings us to the end of another scintillating episode of Story Time. Thank you very much for joining me, and until next time, have a great day.